You are 23 years old, and a bank notification just changed how you see money forever. $51. Paid to you for owning something, not for showing up anywhere at all. You read the notification twice, then a third time, sitting alone on your kitchen floor. That single number is the whole secret nobody explains about building wealth the quiet way. Passive income is not a lump sum, it is a slow shift in ownership over time. At $0 a month, every hour of your life is still traded for a wage. Rent takes $610. The car takes $240. Food takes the rest. You walk through each month like someone crossing thin ice, listening carefully for any cracks. A neighbor named Farah mentions dividend stocks while you're both waiting for the elevator. She says it casually, like she's handing you a key you didn't know you needed. You nod politely, then go upstairs and open a brokerage app for the 9th time. You transfer $100. Your hands are steady, but your chest feels strangely tight. You feel nothing dramatic happen, and somehow you feel like everything just quietly shifted. That is the moment you stop thinking only in paychecks and start thinking in shares. At $60 a month, the payments arrive in small, almost comical fragments of cash. $4 on the 9th, $9 on the 22nd, barely enough to notice. You don't reinvest automatically at first, because you want to watch each deposit land. You start packing lunch, not really to save money, but to quietly redirect it instead. $80 a week in coffee and takeout becomes $300 moving into savings. You don't announce this to your friends, you don't post it, you just keep going. The first dollar of passive income is always the loudest dollar you will ever receive. After that first one, the noise fades and the plain math slowly takes over completely. At $400 a month, you finally understand the shape of real ownership. $400 covers your electric bill, or half of your monthly groceries alone. Your portfolio crosses 6 figures on an ordinary Thursday afternoon in the middle of March. You do not feel wealthy. You feel oddly watched by a version of yourself. You start checking the balance at midnight, then again 4 minutes later without meaning to. Farah gets promoted that same month, earning $11,000 more than you now do. You open a spreadsheet instead of feeling jealous, and the spreadsheet gives you an answer. If you keep saving 40%, you cross $250,000 in 4 years. You close the spreadsheet, then quietly open it again later that same night. Alone, you start saying no to things. A friend's bachelor trip, a cousin's wedding in Denver. You tell people your schedule doesn't allow it, even though your schedule is completely open. You read an old paperback about asset allocation, bought for $3 at a thrift store. You underline one sentence about the difference between price and actual long-term value. You won't fully understand that sentence yet, but you will return to it later. Somewhere in this stretch, you stop measuring your life only in calendar years passing by. You start measuring it instead in small percentages, quiet basis points nobody else can see. At $1,500 a month, the rent is technically covered by the portfolio itself. Not really. You still pay rent from your salary, but the spreadsheet says otherwise. You sleep differently, not necessarily better, just differently, like something loosened somewhere inside you. The fear of losing your job eases slightly, maybe by 4 or 5% total. You notice it clearly the morning your manager schedules a sudden one-on-one meeting with you. You think about the meeting itself, not your bank account, for the first time ever. You meet someone named Noor at a friend's rooftop gathering on a warm Saturday evening. She asks what you do for work, and you answer with your job title only. Later she asks where you see yourself in 10 years, and you almost tell her. You almost say, I am quietly building a machine that will eventually pay me to exist. Instead, you mention wanting to travel more, and she laughs, and you laugh too. That night you transfer another $600 without telling her anything about the account. The middle of this climb is the loneliest part, oddly enough, more than the beginning. The bottom has company everywhere. The top eventually has staff. The middle only has math. At $5,000 a month, something noticeably changes in the air around your life. The portfolio is approaching 7 figures, and you are now 31 years old exactly. Your salary sits at $152,000, plus consulting income of $29,000 yearly. Passive income now covers rent, groceries, utilities, and payments on a used but reliable car. You quietly stop applying for promotions, choosing instead a lateral role with better hours. The new role pays $5,000 less annually, but ends daily at 5 o'clock sharp. Your manager, a woman named Denise, asks gently if everything in your life is fine. You tell her yes, and for the first time in years, you actually mean it. You eat rice with butter one ordinary Wednesday night and realize something important without warning. You haven't thought about money once in nearly 7 hours, and the relief feels enormous. You rinse the bowl, go to bed, and sleep 8 full hours for the first time. You stop optimizing purely for income and start optimizing instead for distance and freedom. At $12,000 a month, the math has crossed a line most friends haven't reached. You don't bring this up at dinners, at parties, or casually with extended family members. The portfolio sits near $2.6 million, mostly spread across simple, boring index funds. A small position sits in a private credit fund a mentor once quietly introduced you to. A paid-off condo throws off $1,800 monthly after fees and small repairs. Dividends alone now total roughly $86,000 across a full calendar year. You still work, but the work feels lighter now, because it's no longer your floor. The portfolio became the floor, and the job simply became a form of performance. You notice things in meetings you used to completely miss before this quiet shift happened. The way a director shifts uncomfortably whenever quarterly revenue numbers get mentioned out loud. The way Farah, now a director herself, laughs slightly too hard at her boss's jokes. You see the room differently now, not from above exactly, just from some small distance. A college friend named Malik calls asking for a loan, $15,000. His father is ill. You send him $17,000 within the hour and quietly tell him to keep it. He cries on the phone, and you feel something you genuinely don't have a name for. Not pride exactly, not pity either. Something colder and warmer sitting together at once. The portfolio doesn't register the $17,000 leaving, and you notice that clearly. That is the moment something quietly hardens, or maybe softens, somewhere inside your chest. Wealth doesn't really change who someone is. It removes the friction hiding who they were. At $30,000 a month, you stop technically having a traditional 9-to-5 job. You become a consultant instead, billing 3 clients around $6,000 each monthly. You work roughly 12 hours a week, and the portfolio crosses $4.8 million. Dividends and interest now cover everything you've ever spent, plus $70,000 extra yearly. You buy a modest 3-bedroom house in cash, in a town where nobody knows your finances. Your neighbors, a couple named Priya and Sam, assume you work quietly in software somewhere. You let them believe it, driving an older car, wearing simple, unremarkable clothing daily. Your shirt costs $28, your watch costs $9,000, and nobody notices either way. You begin noticing the strange texture of free time, heavier than any magazine ever promised. Mornings stretch longer, afternoons stretch even longer, and you take up slow morning running. You read 3 books a month, then start writing privately in an unlabeled black notebook. You write things like, "Freedom removes urgency," and urgency was quietly holding your life together. You don't show this notebook to Noor, who is now your spouse and closest friend. She knows the general shape of your finances, not the specific number sitting in accounts. You tell yourself this is a kindness, though you're honestly never fully certain it is. You stop being fully inside the working system and start living quietly adjacent to it. At $65,000 a month, the whole picture begins feeling strangely abstract to you. The portfolio sits near 11 million, and you are now 42 years old. Income arrives from three sources you rarely touch, a managed equity fund among them. Two real estate partnerships run by a man named Whitmore, who calls twice yearly. A small private fund whose exact name you honestly tend to forget sometimes. You receive tax documents and have to ask your accountant. A man named Ellis questions. He explains everything slowly, and you nod, understanding roughly half of what he says. You realize you don't need to fully understand what's generating the money anymore. The money is quietly making more money, and your only job is not interfering. You see old co-workers online occasionally. Farah is now a senior vice president somewhere. Denise retired 2 years ago, and Malik runs a small contracting business in Reno. You send him a card every December, and he sends one back every year. You haven't seen him in person in 8 years. Only the yearly cards remain. At a certain altitude, relationships slowly become artifacts you preserve rather than daily fixtures. You don't live inside them the way you once did. You simply keep them. At $1 million a year, the air feels genuinely thin in ways hard to explain. The portfolio sits north of 19 million, arriving in occasional large, irregular lump distributions. $200,000 lands 1 March. $300,000 lands 1 September. Quarterly dividends alone now exceed what your own father earned across an entire year. You no longer check the balance yourself, someone else checks it for you now. Her name is Raina, and she sends a single 1-page summary every first Monday. That summary is the only financial document you actually read each month anymore. You spend more time selecting wine for dinner than reviewing your own investments. You sit on a quiet porch one October evening, holding a glass of something warm. Noor is inside. Your daughter, 7 years old, is already asleep somewhere upstairs. You don't think about money. You genuinely haven't in several months at this point. Instead, you think about a Tuesday morning when you were 23 years old exactly. A deposit of $51 landed in an account opened on a borrowed phone. You stared at it for a long time, telling absolutely nobody about what happened. You think about that earlier version of yourself. Somehow, more alive than you feel today. You don't regret any of it. You're simply noticing the quiet distance that grew. The machine never announces its arrival. It accumulates slowly until it has already built you. Somewhere tonight, in a small apartment with second-hand furniture and lukewarm coffee on the counter, a 23-year-old opens a banking app for the 9th time that same week. The deposit reads $44, and they stare at it for a long moment. They tell nobody. They don't yet know what exactly they are quietly starting here. They only know the number is real, and it came from owning, not working. For the first time in their life, a dollar arrived without a clock attached. It always starts exactly there, quietly. On an ordinary day, nobody else notices at all. It always will.